professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
8:07 on CJED. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with my co-host, Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. How's it going, Josh?
Excellent. Go Packers.
Now you say go Packers. Our guest this evening of Telsist Communications, a data center, is Philip Schumacher. Welcome, Philip.
Welcome. Thank you.
You know, tonight, Dan, we delve into the IT entrepreneurial world.
Yes.
Philip has been in the computer world for, a couple of decades plus. So, Philip, let's jump right into it and tell us, what does Telsist do today?
Telsist is a data center that is there to increase the productivity of the customer's IT infrastructure. Our main goal is to increase productivity. People, buy equipment, don't necessarily know how to use all their resources. Our goal is to improve their efficiency in, using a data center, which is a center which controls, is a controlled environment that allows us to view what customer ABC is doing.
So for businesses, they don't necessarily have to maintain their own servers. They can keep all their data and information and processes in your, network, if you will.
Absolutely. We take care of, maintaining it, watching that the hardware is running, if there's hard disk capacity issues that come along. Software upgrades that need to be done to make sure that the network is running without them necessarily having, IT staff to run it.
So this is not, you're doing this now, but you started in this business long before computers and the IT world had all these labor, all these people in town and doing this. Where did you start?
I initially started my main career with Computerland in the mid-'80s, and had the opportunity to have a good mentor who is Harry Bollner, give me the opportunity to grow in that business from the technology side, on the technical side, touch a bit the sales environment. And from there on, I just moved, learned more.
Do you have a technical background?
Yeah, my background is in computer science, and also I touched aircraft maintenance as well as architecture. So that allows me to, see a lot of things, get a good overview of what's out there, and, allowed me to move forward.
So you started in Computerland, I guess, as learning the game, learning the biz, and you ultimately grew into that. You had a sales role. You had to kind of branch out onto your own. Your entrepreneurial side kind of starts to take over. Where do you go from there?
Well, after Computerland, where my main job was in the technical side, I felt it was a time to move forward into a sales role. I felt that the technical people were maybe underpaid, and the salespeople always got everything, and we did all the work. So I said, you know what, I'll try my hand at sales. And, I started at Drake Network Systems, started in the sales role, moved into branch manager, then moved into general manager position, running basically Canada and, with an oversight over South Africa. From that point on, life just continued. Sales.
Were you getting everything that you wanted out of that experience, or you felt you had to move on at some point?
Well, I could not control all the variables when I was with someone else, and I decided that, if I have to learn something or if I have to risk something, I'm still young enough, let's do it. So, after an adventure with Drake International, the organization decided that, Well, it wasn't, the networking business was not really their role. I offered to maybe acquire it, partner with them, but their asking price was slightly high, and I decided that it was not worth that. So I decided to talk with other people that I knew in the trade, and that's where I started Westcon. I interested friends of mine who were in the technology business distribution in New York. I bought a lot of gear from them. I sold gear to them. So we had multiple discussions, and we started Westcon Canada. So I ran, Westcon Canada as basically the owner, hired all the people, got everything rolling. As Westcon grew, we grew, the countries grew. We added Australia to the portfolio. We added Hong Kong to the portfolio. It was my responsibility.
I just want to come back to it. You said one of the reasons you left was you didn't quite see eye to eye, and you didn't quite have the same control over things where it sounds like you had at Westcon. Are you a controlling person?
No, but to get work accomplished, you need to be able to control the variables that are out there. It does not mean the person has to control, but you need to know what's out there, and if you could control it, you could get you get your results.
For people like Philip who are specialists in a field and then who go on to be managers, it must be difficult sometimes to let go and to not be so hands-on. Did you find that was the case?
I learned in the early days, take the emotions out of the business, and you'll see, pretty clearly where you want to go. Keep the emotions in, you're going to go sideways, left, right, and, you have no choice. Business is hard. There's nothing easy in it, and we need to make sure that, what we're looking for, we want to accomplish. So
it's interesting, Philip, you talk about keep the emotions out of it. There's so many entrepreneurs, and certainly in Quebec, we are an emotional society. And there's a lot of people that think with their gut, that think with their heart, and don't always act with their head. And there's nothing more dangerous or potentially more dangerous than an entrepreneur totally going off the deep end with their heart. You got to run a business. You have a duty to yourself, to your ambition side, to your people, to your family. And you do. I totally agree with you. You do have to sometimes, or most of the time, take the emotion out and really look at it from an objective nature. And I think when we come back after the break, we'll talk and see how you are able to impart that and deal with your people in that regard.
Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Our guest this evening, Philip Schumacher of Telsist Communications, and more with Philip in a moment, 8:15.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau. Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening, Philip Schumacher. He's of Telsist Communications, and we're taking a look at the IT industry this evening. And we were talking, Philip, earlier about, as an IT expert, once you get into the managerial roles of giving up some of that control, and part of that is really looking for the right people and finding the right people to work for you, to do that dirty work. How did you manage to do that?
There's no secret, behind that. It's a lot of hard work. You interview a lot. You meet a lot of people. You get recommendations. People refer you. And you try and build a team that fits well together. You can't have all leaders. You can't have all followers. You have to see, what each person can do for you, and how do you fit it together in a puzzle.
It's interesting. You mentioned you can't be all leaders and all followers. I totally agree. But how do you find that leader? And when you're creating or surrounding yourself with those people, can you identify them quickly? Are they, it comes back to the age-old question, are leaders born or are they made?
I think, they're made, but, you still need to have the feeling in your blood boiling that you have to have a killer instinct. If you don't want to participate, if you don't want to do things with a group, then you can't be a leader. Certain salespeople are very good salespeople, but you put them into the sales management role, they can't accommodate the rest. It's hard.
Earlier, I asked you a question if you were controlling, but in the same breath, I'll say, if you find the right people, are you a good delegator and coach?
Yes, I'm always interested in giving more and more responsibilities to my employees. I am looking for them to take the challenge and move forward. Creativity is, and innovation happens by letting people do what they think is good. And even if they deviate a bit from the exact role you're looking for, if you come at the end and you achieve the goals you're looking for, they're doing a good job.
Do you expect them to challenge you, or do you expect them to, are you always giving?
I hope they challenge me. I'm looking for someone to take my position one day. So I like challenges. I like betting. I like having fun. So I expect my employees to do the same thing.
But are you worried one day? I mean, I know a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes keep some information very close to their heart. It's their business, it's their baby. Are you worried one day that one of your key people can just get up, walk out, and compete against you?
No. I try and stay in contact with all my customers and all the customers. So, I take the phone calls from everyone. I call, I check. For sure, an employee can try it. But, again, if you build good relationships with your customers, you really shouldn't worry about it.
And with your employees too, I imagine.
Same thing.
Loyalty, goes a long way, I guess. It's certainly a give and take relationship. I guess how would you describe your style with your people as an overall, Philip? What's worked for you?
Well, I try and teach them. My goal at this point is to educate them, mentor them, allow them to improve in their career decisions, to move forward. I'm there to help out. If they ask the questions, they'll always get the answers. Whether they like the answer, that's a different story. But they have to learn. And I'm there to help them learn. I have the experience. I gladly give that experience as something that I can contribute in, getting their career to move forward.
Have you been disappointed or really let down at one point?
Oh, it's happened numerous times where, in the interviewing process, you don't know if, the person is going to be a good candidate or that. You see it after a couple of months. So, some people have a good way to hide things and, they have their own agendas. And, you try and figure out what the agenda is. You try and, have the same agenda. But, I've had, some mishaps or bad hires, and, I'm not ashamed of it. I had to learn. It made me work harder.
I think when we come back from the break, they're all good information and good stories and lessons to learn. There's two philosophies. You're either empowering your people and letting them help you grow the business, or you're keeping it, and you're a little more closed-minded and you're keeping it all to yourself. One tends to work possibly that I've seen better than others. And I think when we get back from the break, we'll kind of explore that a little bit and talk about how Quebec has been able to bring the labor team to you.
Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD, it's 8:23.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
8:24 on CJAD. Our guest on today's Entrepreneur is Philip Schumacher of Telsist Communications.
We were talking about people and finding the right people and leaders and really surrounding yourself with a great team. You're dealing with a business that certainly can be international in nature. So I guess I'm curious, Philip, how do you find, why would you situate yourself in Quebec?
Well, the first reason is all the family is here.
It's a good reason.
Secondly, we have a good multicultural environment that brings a lot of experience from other places, and it's critical to grow any organization by taking the experiences from other locations. And you always learn. You're not there, I always learn something. An experience from someone will teach me something new.
You've dealt with other regions around the world and other economies. Do you have a comment about how we operate in Quebec, whether it's the bureaucratic side, whether it's the government side, whether it's the people side?
I think all countries have their pluses and minuses. All provinces have pluses and minuses. You can't get the perfect world, but if you could balance it out and look at what the good pieces are and the bad, and you should get something that's pretty decent. We always complain about the lack of experience of certain individuals through the schooling system, the experience that they get. Yes and no.
Do you find that the government here in Quebec is supportive of the IT industry?
I've been very much on my own, so I don't see the government involved as much. What I see a lot of is the government has a lot of old equipment. They are not investing in their infrastructure. So sometimes when we get requests, we look at it and we say, oh boy. But everyone has to invest. If you want to get productive, you got to put some money into it.
Have you been able to take advantage of some of the, I guess, the incentives, the government incentives, whether it's research and development or what have you, as a small business, and certainly in the IT sector?
Well, in Telsist, we have a research and development arm in it where we're creating some software to help the small and mid-size organizations to support the security aspect of their networks. So we're working on it. We're trying to create a product which is, in today's world, the big organizations can pay for all the resources, but the small and medium-sized businesses can't buy all these different applications, or appliances to support their IT infrastructure.
Did you ever think of doing something other than the IT industry? I mean, as an entrepreneur, you ever wanted to get in something all, quote, bricks and mortar?
I'm in the real estate business. I've had a lot of fun in it. I've learned a lot. And I play in the junior mining business. And I think if we look at the news, copper is going up. So we're involved in that. And I help out here and there. And, I like to learn.
Is it a conscious decision, or do you look out and you say, you know what? I can't just do one thing. My heart's in other places. I've mastered this. I want to go on to something else. What drives you to go on to the next project?
I feel all the different, if I look at the facility side of my business, in the used equipment part of the business, the recycling, the data center, they all fit together. As if you want to run a data center, you got to know your facilities side of the business. You need to know how to buy your equipment. You need to know what is required. And then the data center side, well, you need to know how to service your customer.
Coming up after the break, more focus on IT issues on today's Entrepreneur. Our guest, Philip Schumacher of Telsist Communications, and also the IT director from Fuller Landau, Kevin Ammerman, will be by to talk about IT issues for your business. Right now, CJD time is coming up to 8:30.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
8:34 on CJAD. Today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. Our guest this evening is Philip Schumacher of Telsist Communications, and also along in a few minutes will be Kevin Ammerman, the IT director of Fuller Landau, to talk about how you can help get the ball rolling with IT in your business. And Josh, we're talking about how Telsist is really an international company and how that could be tricky sometimes.
I think for SMEs, for entrepreneurs, as they deal, because they're dealing internationally, whether they think they are or they're not, they're clearly dealing internationally. And what I wanted to get to, and I wanted to ask Philip the question, is when you're dealing with banks, your financial institutions, do they understand that? And how, Philip, how has been your experience with dealing with your financial institutions, your bank, throughout your entrepreneurial career?
Initially, it was pretty difficult. A lot of the banks had to use other banks to do transfers or payments. So say, example, you're in Montreal and you needed to do stuff in Australia. There's no Canadian bank that is there, doing the work. So over the years, we looked, and there is one bank that is basically everywhere. So for any organization that needs those resources and can use a computer system to manage their cash, it's extremely important, because you're trying to pay some trades and the money's not there. Why isn't it there? Well, the fax from one bank didn't arrive at the other location, or the instructions did not arrive. When you have one point to go to, or one organization, and you say, where's the money? You have the money. Why isn't it in this country, and why isn't it dispersed? So, there's a lot of things to look at. Also, if you deal with an organization that has branches globally, you have one account manager, and basically they're responsible for the relationship, and then you have the local people in the local countries.
So you're saying, as large and as many assets as our Canadian banks have, you would still prefer, you think, on an international scale, it's better to deal with a bank that's really worldwide?
Well, I could say I deal with HSBC, and I've been quite satisfied with their services around the globe. Whether we did work in Australia, Hong Kong, China, Brazil, they were there. It was easy to do business.
Seamless? Is it really seamless?
Seamless. No issues.
Do you still have to stay on top of them? I mean, as an entrepreneur, knowing your business as well as you do, you still have to kind of educate the banker sometimes, don't you? Yes.
Account managers change. They don't know your business. New one comes in. You have to re-educate them and re-educate them. And even if you have a good track record, the account manager doesn't necessarily know it or understand your business. And as a small business, you have a lot of, tangibles and intangibles, and the bigger banks just look at the tangibles. So bottom line is, unless you have a good relationship, you're going to be in for a tough fight.
You're in the IT sector, we all know that. Things change rapidly. I mean, everything is going at 100 miles an hour. How do you stay on top of the next best thing?
You just have to watch, read, look, talk to people. It's, I like talking with a lot of people in the security world, so I know what they're working on, innovators in this world. There's always new stuff out there. Is it good? Will it last till next year? Who knows?
Do you have a lot of competition, and how do you deal with them?
In the environment in Telsist that I'm that we've targeted, we have the big guys, and then there's no one else. So we're one of the small guys out there, and every month we add more customers, and the big guys can't really compete because they're too expensive for the small and medium-sized business. So Then you have the other people in the environment. We're mainly involved in, managed co-location. Other people do co-location. They rent space. It's real estate. So you put your rack there, you put your servers there. Is there a firewall there? Who knows? Who's going to manage it? Well, I don't know. We'll go run into the center and see if it works. We're in a different environment. We want to, control all the variables for the customer. We know their information is critical. It's critical to their business. And we want to make sure we're part of their solution, not the other way.
So I guess several years ago, before you started, you had this vision saying, you know what, the big boys just can't handle this. You saw a gap in the market.
Right.
And you filled it.
That's right.
It's as simple as that.
Yep. It's as simple as that.
If everything were only so simple. I'd love to bring Kevin into the conversation now as we talk about security and the simple things that some small, medium-sized businesses can't really, either they don't know, they're not, or they don't know they can do efficiently, effectively, and not pay a fortune. We're talking about a data center with Telsist. We're talking about backups and security. Kevin, can I just get your thoughts, of the challenges that an SME faces today with backup and security, and what you see they're not doing?
Well, that's the big question, is what they're not doing. Nobody knows. A lot of people never check their backup tapes. They never really look at what's going on. They might be using some little USB drive that they picked up for $50, and they're relying on this to house all their backups. They don't realize that every time they overwrite that drive, they're erasing history, and it limits how far they can go back. And a lot of companies don't know how easy it is to add on to these services and to get a few layers in their backup strategy, or make it somebody else's problem altogether, and sort of take that off their plate.
Which is kind of where Philip may come in, that they make it his problem. Now, from a cost standpoint, has costs come down over the years? What can small business owners expect to pay, or is there a ballpark idea of what they could set up?
What we're seeing right now is the better quality products are selling per capacity. They're agentless, so they don't care what, if you're running a Mac, Linux, the OS, and AS400, everything's based on capacity. And most of these backups are done block by block versus file by file. A lot of the cheap backup solutions that are out there are file by file. But people have to understand that if their server crashes, their file by file won't help them out that much, because they have to reconstruct their server. And anyone knows, with the operating system and all the backups that are out, all the different versions of upgrades that are out there, an organization could be down for a couple of days.
And it's not just about the hardware. I presume it's also about the policies and how entrepreneurs, you could be an office of 2, 3, 4, just a few people, and are people checking their backups? How do they even know that everything is secure and safe?
And getting a bit of a plan in place, so not just for backups, but for an entire office-wide disaster recovery plan is really important. It's not something that you have to spend weeks developing, but coming up with some sort of continuity plan, so that if your server room does get flooded or catch fire or something like this, that you not only can get your data back and onto a computer, but you have a place to put your people so that they can work on this data.
On today's Entrepreneur, our guests, Kevin Ammerman, IT Director from Fuller Landau, and Philip Schumacher of Telsist Communications. I'm wondering at what point a small business owner would consider using IT services from the outside instead of just figuring it out on their own.
Well, I think the easiest answer is cost. If you're a business that doesn't want to invest in having someone on site full time, or if you're an owner or maybe a controller of a company who is finding themselves spending more and more time on these IT issues, or even worse, not spending time on the IT issues and just letting them slide, then it's time to start looking outside. And again, it doesn't have to be a terribly costly experience. You get somebody in for an hour or two to take a look at the situation and make some recommendations, and then hopefully follow those recommendations and carry on. But a couple of hours a month of IT support goes a long, long way.
Philip, in your business, you started, you're growing. As you said, you have customers calling in and signing up every month. At what level do you see these clients? At what level are their businesses that they're outsourcing this function to you?
Well, we target different customer types. If we're talking about small and medium businesses, Prime examples are, they need one server, they need their operating systems, they need, someone to maintain it. Right now, they might be using an external person to do it. They drive in, spend 2 hours here, do this. It's not in a controlled environment. If you have a crash, what do? Will the person be there right away? SLA or service level agreements are extremely important, and most of the smaller organizations out there do not have IT personnel on staff. So how are they going to increase their productivity if they don't look at more efficient means of controlling?
And I think security also becomes a big issue. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, not just on the backup, but the security and how do people stop the spam and stop the violations of their own computer.
Today's entrepreneur on CJAD, Dan Delmar, and Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. Also in studio from Fuller Landau is Kevin Ammerman. He takes care of IT there. And Philip Schumacher of Telsist Communications, 8:45 on CJAD.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. Also from Fuller Landau is Kevin Ammerman. He takes care of IT there. And Philip Schumacher, our guest of Telsist Communications. So obviously IT, the theme today. And whenever we talk IT, we must talk about security.
No question about it. And I guess with the little entrepreneur, the kind of one-man show, to the hundreds of employees, there's got to be different options or solutions out there. Kevin, what can you tell us that may be some of the options and some of the things that entrepreneurs might not know about security?
Well, again, it's a matter of approachability. So knowing that you should be putting something in place, that the little router that comes with your internet connection probably isn't going to do the job for you. It's really, really important to add something a little bit more robust in there. And not only for security, but they add extra features. So it adds in things like remote access and spam filters as well, so it cleans up your email a little bit. And then the next level is to take it to a hosted solution where you're offshoring that to another provider who might be able to help you out and manage that for you and add a lot more of a robust and managed solution to your environment.
Now we're talking about trying to avoid viruses, or trying to not get people to break into your system.
These days, it's almost the same thing. So viruses are just one way that people will try to get into your system. So spam, viruses, people attacking transactions in process, they're all sort of different flavors of the same attacks that are trying to get into your system. We don't see traditional viruses, like viruses that are trying to crash your computer. Those aren't so common anymore. These days, most viruses are actually tools that hackers are using to try and gain control of your computer and make it do something else.
And is it, so you don't have to worry about somebody coming in and, planting a big bug and your computer is going to crash. Are they simple? I mean, is it expensive? Is it cheap to find some of these softwares? And is it software you need, or is it something more complicated?
Well, it really depends on the scale. So a small office, a small firewall costing $100, $200 is plenty, as long as it's set up properly. And that's the key, making sure it's set up properly. And again, your antivirus software usually works out to about $50 per computer. But it's really important to make sure that it's in place and that it's the good stuff. It's not setting off false alarms. It's not trying to sell you more software or anything like this. Something that just works in the background and that works.
Can the average business owner just go to a computer store, pick up the antivirus software, install it themselves? Do you think it's easy enough for them to do that?
It's simply enough, yes, but again, you got to make sure, and it's a good idea to ask for some opinions on this to make sure that you're getting something that not only works, but works in the background and is quiet and just does the job for you. And
when we talk, I guess that's antivirus. I guess now this other buzzword is firewall. Mm-hmm. What does firewall mean? Is that a software? Is that a hardware? Like, how does somebody set up a firewall?
Most computers come with a very, very simple firewall installed on them these days, but that is not sufficient for most users. It does help for attacks within your own network, but in terms of protecting you from online attacks, or more importantly for protecting your servers, it just doesn't do the job. So it's really important to have some sort of well-maintained firewall that is watched over and ideally has some redundancy built in, so that if your business is relying on this connection, that it is really protected.
And I guess, as we talk about the firewalls and security, it's something that, myself, I certainly don't know enough about. But at the very least, the entrepreneur has to know that you got to do something. You got to do something to protect your data, whether it's having it offsite at a data management center, as Telsist does, or you have your own redundant systems or backup. Certainly, you have to have some policies to enforce it. But it is a minefield out there, and the more the entrepreneurs just don't know about it, they have to inform themselves. It's far too easy for something to go wrong.
If you don't know, find someone who does.
And if you don't know, find somebody who does.
Today's Entrepreneur continues. It's 8:53 on CJ80.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
8:55, today's entrepreneur. Our guest this evening, Philip Schumacher of Telsist Communications, and Kevin Ammerman, IT Director from Fuller Landau. And Josh, let's continue on when it comes to security. Very important issue.
I could see Philip kind of holding his thoughts as Kevin was talking. Before we wrap up, Philip, and before we get your real thoughts and words of wisdom for today's entrepreneur, can you tell us what was running through your head as we were talking about firewalls and security?
Well, a lot of people leave, their access open. They need VPN connections, so they have a secure way into their network. A lot of people don't have firewalls, do not have VPN connections. It causes a lot of problems. They bring in notepads that go into the network, and they infect the network. These software hackers of this day create robots, and the robots are there to deliver some information or gather some information. So, security is, it's like an insurance policy on your company. You could take the risk and take the gamble, but most of the time you'll have to call the fire truck.
Excellent. And as we talk and as we were listening to your, I guess, entrepreneurial story, what words of advice would you give to today's entrepreneur as they run their business?
Well, I feel, the first thing, they have to serve their customer properly. They pay everyone's bills. So if you lose, the focus of who is bringing the bread to the table, you're going to have a major problem. Secondly, you got to treat your staff properly with respect. And if you can be part of their growth and evolution in their career, go for it. Mentor, offer your experiences, allow innovation, live a balanced life. You got a family life, you got to work, you got to have a family life. Don't create roadblocks for innovation or anything within your organizations. And you know what? I think what's very important is patience and perseverance. If you do that, you could go on and enjoy life.
All great thoughts. Dan, if I can bring up a couple of takeaways, and one that's just a little bit different than we've been hearing in the past: objectivity, taking the emotion out of it. That's something that's resonating with me that Philip spoke about earlier on. Yes, it's sometimes really difficult. You're talking about your baby, it's your business, you want to grow it. It may be for your children or for your spouse, or you're taking it on as the next generation. It's sometimes really difficult to take that emotion out of it. You want to succeed, you might be doing it for X number of people, but to have that objectivity, to take a step back, to kind of look at it from either a bird's eye view, even if it's to bounce an idea off of somebody else, keep that objectivity is hugely important. And I think for any entrepreneur out there, that is one of the best pieces of advice. And if there's anything they took away from this conversation, this gentleman's experience, it is absolutely that. Not an easy thing, but something that is crucial to any business. Of course, the security and firewalls and all that scare the living hell out of me too, but maintain the objectivity and you can deal with all those issues, and that's what's really important.
And you can't do everything, and that's certainly clear when it comes to IT more than almost any other aspect of your business.
Exactly.
Josh Miller, thanks so much. We'll see you next Monday night.
Next Monday night at 7 p.m. Total Entertainment is our guest.
Excellent. Should be very entertaining. And thank you to Kevin Ammerman, also from Fuller Landau, and Philip Schumacher of Telsist Communications. You can reach Fuller Landau at 514-875-2865 or visit their website, which is www.flmontreal.com. Back again on Today's Entrepreneur, once again next Monday night at 7 p.m. And coming up next on CJAD, it's Delmar at Night.